A lot of people dream about picking up one of these big old school buses, building it out and going on the Great American Road Trip, or simply building it out and living the full-time lifestyle. But the problem is, these school buses are a dime a dozen, and it's really hard to find which one might be best for you and which one's gonna fit your needs. Well, in this video, we're gonna talk about how to buy a school bus and how to find the best one for you. What's up, guys? My name's Michael, and welcome to Navigation Nowhere, where you're gonna have the best tips and tricks about living on the road and how to get from point A to point B and have the most fun doing it. Let's get into it. The problem that many people have when they're looking to buy a school bus, they don't exactly know what they're looking for. The most experience that you probably have with a school bus is driving one to school in high school or middle school, and after that you probably haven't had a second thought until you decide you're gonna buy one and possibly live in one. Well, there's 3 key tips that you want to consider when looking for a school bus that can really solve most of the problem. When you're looking for school buses on the road, there are so many out there to pick from. There's high top ceilings, there's low top ceilings, there's long buses, there's mid chassis like the one behind me, there's short chassis. There's so many buses that you can choose from, and there are so many out there on the market. The problem is you need to find the one that's right for you and not just find a bus. Well, don't worry, because there's 3 simple tips that can really answer that question and get you right on the road. Tip number 1 for looking for the best school bus is going to be figuring out the length and body style that you are particularly looking for. Figuring out the length and body style is going to be your first step to finding a school bus, because that's going to give you the frame and chassis size that you're looking for. Now, I'm going to break this down into one simple question. How do you see yourself living the bus life? Do you see yourself traveling around from place to place, going from point A to point B, busting out like 30 or 40,000 miles a year like I do? Or do you see yourself living more of a camper lifestyle where you're going from campground to campground, maybe only moving once or twice a year? This is going to greatly affect your decision on what size and style school bus you want, simply because of the mileage, the driving, the size that you're going to have to get into and out of roads, national parks, state parks. For instance, if you're looking to go into parks such as Glacier National Park, Zion National Park, or Arches, they have length restrictions, so you won't be able to take a typical 40-foot school bus into those places. You're going to have to look for something much smaller, because those have 21 to 28-foot length restrictions. If you aren't looking for something that small, you're going to have to look for something where you're going to be able to put a back rack on or tow a car. Now, if you're just trying to stay in campgrounds or move a little bit slower, or you're already thinking about towing a car, a larger bus can give you more room and give you the space on the road when traveling. So there are ways around both options. It's just simply asking the question of how you see yourself living the lifestyle. The second thing to think about when you're considering body length and style is going to be ease of driving. The bus behind me right here is a 30-foot school bus. It's got a very small wheelbase, so the turning radius on this bus is going to be much better than, say, a 35 or 40-foot school bus, where it won't be able to turn as easily in parking lots and on crossroads. So it's just something to consider of how you feel comfortable driving, and if you feel comfortable driving a really big bus or something with a smaller wheelbase. The third thing to think about is going to be the interior space. This bus behind me has a high ceiling in it. The ceiling inside of it is about a 6'4" ceiling. Now with that, you have a lot of interior space. You can also find buses with lower ceilings, somewhere around a 5'10" to 6-foot ceiling. But the thing is, if you're already someone who's tall or interior space is very important to you, that's something that you're going to want to look for. You're not going to want to look at buses that are 5'10" ceilings. You're going to want to look for something that has a 6'4" ceiling. That is, of course, unless you're looking to do a roof raise, which is a possibility. And at that point, you can find any interior height you want. You're already going to raise the roof anyway. The second key point that you want to look at is going to be the engine and drivetrain. Now, this may sound really scary to most of you, and many people are probably thinking, what the heck? I don't know anything about engines or transmissions. How am I supposed to understand what type of engine and transmission I'm supposed to be looking at? Well, that's okay, because there are many engines, many transmissions, and many differential options out there, and it's not as hard as you'd think to find the right one for you. You don't need to be a diesel mechanic, you don't need to be an engine whiz to be able to figure this type of thing out. All that you really need to know is the difference between what I'm going to call a mountain bus and a highway bus. Now, that's not technical terms, and if you go to a mechanic and ask them for a mountain bus, they're not exactly going to give you what you're looking for, and they're going to say, what do you really mean? But that's okay, because for this purpose, all we need to do is understand these 2 types of buses. Now, a mountain bus is going to have a high gear ratio. Now, what this means essentially is that when you're running at highway speeds, it's going to also have high RPMs. What that's going to result in is higher torque, more power, but less gas mileage. So if you're trying to climb over the Rocky Mountains, that bus is going to go up it with ease, but it's not going to do it with great gas mileage, so it's something to consider. Now, a highway bus is a bus that at highway speeds is going to run at a lower RPM. Now, that's going to give you less power and torque, but it's going to give you a much more efficient gas mileage. And if you're trying to travel long distances, gas mileage is key. So when you're looking for a bus, you really want to look for something with highway gearing rather than mountain gearing. It's going to save you a lot of money in the end, and it's going to save you a lot of money during your build if you plan on switching out a transmission or a differential during the build, especially if you don't know how to do it yourself. For instance, I switched out my rear end on my bus, and that transfer cost me about $1,600 doing it myself. So it's really something you want to consider, where if you can buy this bus and this bus, buying the bus with the highway gears is going to save you that money off the bat. Another thing that I just want to mention about finding the right bus in terms of mountain and highway is you can also find buses with air conditionings. You can also find buses with heaters, diesel block heaters, and cruise control. It's just a matter of where the bus was manufactured and what was the purpose of that bus. So if you say find a bus from the north or the Rocky Mountains, it most likely will already have a diesel heater plug and a diesel tank heater plug. And if that's something you're looking for, that's going to be an area you might want to look for buses. Whereas if you're looking for a bus with an already built-in air conditioner, you're going to want to look in places like Florida or Arizona or Texas, where those come standard in many buses in those states. So it's just something to consider, where these are options that you can find in the buses already built if you just look in the right location. Now, the third key to what you really want to look is the condition of the bus. So this is where you're going to look at the actual metal, the actual underbody, the actual tires, and you want to see what the condition of the bus is. The number one rule in the bus community is a rusty bus is always going to be a rusty bus. So if you look at a bus, you really want to get underneath the bus, look at the frame rails, look at the wheel wells, and you want to see, is there any rust there? Now, surface rust is something you can deal with, and that's okay, but if you're able to flake rust off or put your finger or a poking stick through the metal, that is a clear sign that you don't want that bus. It is going to rust away on you, and it's going to be more work than you want. This bus behind me is almost completely rust-free. It's a 2003. Now, this bus I just ripped apart in about 2 days. As you can see, the windows and everything are gutted out of it. And the reason why it was so easy to gut was because it was completely rust-free. The screws came out easy, the bolts came out easy. It's gonna make your life so much better if you can find a rust-free bus. Now, I also wanna show you where these rust spots are gonna be and where you can look when you see a bus. Where you're gonna wanna look is on the back of the bus below the windows. A lot of times the gaskets will rupture, water will seep in, and it will start rusting out the bottom of the bus. So if you just look along the bottom edge and you see the paint bubbling or any rust coming out of the screws, you know that it's rusting from the inside. Likewise, you want to look underneath the frame rails and see if there's any rust on the frame I-beams or inside the wheel wells. Those are two parts that you really want to check. Specifically, you want to check the driver's side, because the driver's side is the road side, and any type of road or salt spray is going to affect that side of the bus before it's going to affect the passenger side of the bus. So if you see the driver's side of the is going to be quite rusty, you're going to want to stay away from that bus. Another place you want to look in the window sills. The window sills are going to tell you if the caulk on the windows is bad and if it's seeping into the bus. By knowing that, you're going to know about what it's going to look like behind the walls before you actually get the bus, and give you a good idea if this is a good bus for you. Now, on top of that, looking at the condition of the bus, you also want to look at the tires. Now, looking at the tires is so important because a new set of tires can cost you anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 for a 6 set. The reason that is because tires are expensive. So if you can buy a bus with half-life tires or even full tread tires, you're saving yourself that money right off the bat. Whereas if you buy a bus that already has ball tires on it, you know right from the bat when you buy that bus, you're gonna be dropping a lot of money into it. So find a bus with good tires, find a bus that's rust-free. Now, as I explained, there were a lot of buses out there on the market, and these 3 keys are gonna get you closer to the bus that's right for you. You gotta think of buying a school bus as buying a house. You would never buy a house with a cracked foundation. You would never buy a house with a bunch of leaky pipes or termite damage. A bus is gonna be the same way. The bus is your foundation. You would never wanna buy a rusty foundation, so why would you buy one as a school bus? You wanna start off with the best bus you can, because that's gonna set you up for the best conversion. Look at a bunch of buses, familiarize yourself with what's out there, and compare them to other buses you've seen previously. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope that this video helps you find the perfect bus for you. Just remember that the first step is going to be research and getting out there and looking at buses. So get to the auction yards, get to the school yards, get to the dealerships, and get familiar with what buses are out there. Now, if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you have currently converted or are converting, feel free to leave tips in the comments below for those who are watching. Thanks for watching once again, and I'll see you guys next time.